Good afternoon, everybody. Just like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is entitled Customer Experience Making It Personal, which is an exciting webinar. We've got lots of people registered, lots of people already online for it. I'm delighted to welcome today's panelists. We've got Martin, who are both regular panelists on the Call Center Helper webinars. A lot of you will know Martin Hill-Wilson from Brainfood Training. Martin's going to be talking us through customer experience making it personal. Also delighted to be joined by Tim Pickard from NewVoiceMedia, who's going to be going through 7 examples of personalisation. We'll have a chance for you to submit your top tips and potentially win that bottle of champagne, and then we'll have a live question and answer session. We'll also be keeping the web chat open until 2:30. That's an extra half an hour after the webinar. So if there's any questions you have, anything you want to address, or you just want to talk with the rest of the audience, you can do that, callcenterhelper.com/chat. But before we get into that, I'd just like to run through a poll, and that poll is, as a customer, do you feel that brands are getting better or worse at customer experience? So the answers are better customer experience, about the same, or customer experience seems to be getting worse. So that's as a, if you like, as a consumer, as your personal experiences. So if you'd just like to vote on that now, we've got about half of you voted. So if you could just vote now. So we're getting the answers coming in, and I'm just going to close that, and I'm going to share the results up on the screen. So we've got 40% think it's getting better, Martin. That surprised me. I would have thought that would have been higher than that.
Well, it'd be interesting to compare and see how people view it through the lens of their own organisations, which is our next little poll. But I think it's still tough to impress us as consumers, is the truth of the matter. And so actually, let's have this up. So 70%. At best, we've got a slightly improved one or about the same.
And Tim Pickard, 23% think it's getting worse.
Yes, that's a shocker, isn't it? Well, I think individually we've probably all experienced that bad experience of customer service. I think Martin's right. I think if we ask the question through the lens of your own organisation, we'd probably see quite a different result.
So on the topic of your own organisation, I've got another webinar I'd like to share, another poll I'd like to share with you. And that poll is, does your contact centre have some form of personalisation strategy? So just put the answers up there on the screen for you. One answer you do. The answers are, we're already doing it. We have a plan for personalisation strategy for the next 12 months. It's on the horizon. We have no plans for a personalisation strategy, or we've rejected the idea. So if you'd just like to vote on that now.
I'm hoping there's not too many if we've rejected the idea.
Well, I would imagine that the people who've rejected the idea won't be coming to today's webinar. So let's see if they have indeed rejected the idea. So Tim, nobody has rejected the idea, and 42% have some form of personalisation strategy already.
Really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's great. There we go.
So if you've got any ideas of what you're doing, if you'd just like to put that into the question box on the right-hand side, it'd be interesting to see what sorts of things make up your strategy. So
it'd be very cute if that was the same 40% who was having a better experience.
There's the correlation.
So that's good news that so many people have got a strategy. So only a few there haven't. So I'm now delighted to go to the next part of the agenda, which is the customer experience making it personal. Martin and Tim are doing a bit of a double act.
It's a little bit of a double
act.
So
I'm just going to hand across. I think, Tim, you're going to do a couple of slides, and then Martin
is
going to move across. So just change presenter, and we'll get the slides up on
the
screen.
Good afternoon, everybody, and let me add my welcome to Jonty to this webinar. I would like to just give you a very brief 2-minute overview of NewVoiceMedia for those of you who are not familiar with us. We are a true cloud contact center. In other words, we are a multi-tenant environment. So all our customers share the same platform. We have been managing the platform for our customers since 2006, with roughly 170 customers and 300 call centers around the world in 29 countries, servicing around 8,000 agents. We are doubling in size now, and it's very clear that the market, in terms of traditional call centers and those people who are new to the industry, to call centers, are preferring and are switching to cloud-based technologies for multiple reasons. We have a number of things that we take very seriously. We are the only vendor to have a trust site which shows performance, availability and security in real time in a public environment, so to everybody, that shows the availability of the service, and that is a unique that we provide to our customers, because we understand that when you move to the cloud, you are moving some of that dependency to a service provider, and we recognize that we have to demonstrate and gain trust in that environment. Some of the other important things, security, ISO 27001, across the business, so not in any particular function, but across the whole business, and PCI data security standards as well, level 1. Some business accolades as well, and you can see some of our customers on the right-hand side. So they vary enormously. Internet retailers in the form of Photobox, business to business in the form of Lumes and SHL, Truephone, HRON is obviously a high-end car retailer. So, you know, very, very broad cross-section of customers use us, both from the traditional help desk and contact center environments to those who are taking customer experience and personalization very, very seriously. So HRON are doing some very interesting things in that area, and we'll come on and do some and look at some examples of what our customers are actually doing from a personalization point of view. We seem to have locked on our oh, there we go. So just a very quick perspective. So as I said, everything is in the cloud. It's all our own technology, built by and managed by NewVoiceMedia. A lot of the elements and features that you would expect to see in traditional contact center environments we provide, and a lot of the personalization comes from links through CRM. In this instance, we've shown Salesforce as a CRM. We integrate with other CRMs as well, but that gives us a lot of the routing data that we then are able to manage that personalized experience. As I said, true cloud contact center, so nothing on site. The only thing that our customers need to set up a contact center environment is an internet connection and a terminating phone number, so either an IP or a fixed line telephone number. So that's me done. I'm going to hand over to Martin, who we have worked with on a number of occasions around this topic, and I'm delighted that he's been able to join us today. Martin.
Thank you very much, Tim. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for being with us. So interesting from the stats, 40% of us are experimenting in one form or the other. I've just responded to Nicola, who's contributed the insight that as far as personalization in her space, what we're doing is moving away from scripted to structured calls, and that's allowing agents to fill in the gap, if you want, in terms of being flexible and more personal. That's a great example. So if we can maybe kind of co-create this conversation this afternoon, I'm going to give you some examples, but if you can feed back also to us things that you're doing as well, that makes a much richer thing. Jonty is very good afterwards at then translating that into publicly available information through articles afterwards. So let's see if we can actually gather some intelligence on this.
And we've already had some comments back. Nicola says, call, in terms of their personalization strategy, calls are structured, not scripted, to allow agents to be flexible and more personal. And Scott has said, key points on customer service, define your vision for customer experience, ask your customers what they want, good and bad bits of the current approach, identifying relevant channels, knowing where your customer wants to be heard, ensuring that replies are in context, reuse of nuances benefit all parts of the customer experience, etc.
Excellent.
I'll cut and paste that and put that onto the web chat so you can read that in your...
Couldn't agree with you more. And somebody who obviously has a bit of sense of history has asked, how many of the principles that merchants advocated in the 90s still hold true? I'd say 120%. Thank you for that question, whoever that was. Right. So on the basis of the fact that we're making some progress, I'd like to talk about customer experience, and I'd also like to talk about personalization as part of that. And again, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a sort of background feel to it. This is an example of the kinds of statistics that you see peppered all over the place, which is, to me, just part of the growing evidence that there is a correlation between the way we treat customers and the impact it has upon them continuing to trade with us as a brand, and in certain circumstances we can also see the commercial outcome. Now, in many respects, I suppose on our side of the fence, that's pretty much an article of faith. Of course we believe that, otherwise we wouldn't be bothered to make an effort. But it is still an argument, in my view, that it has got to be nailed and completely handled in terms of what the rest of the organisation believe. Customer experience, interestingly, as a discipline, is of course broader than just the contact centre and customer service. And really what it's attempting to do is to look at the whole of the organisation and say, from a customer journey perspective, what does, doesn't work, etc., etc. Actually, interestingly, I was on another seminar a couple of days ago, and somebody was saying we're just going through that process, and so far we've mapped 800 processes. So it's going to be interesting as people get to grips with this in terms of how much detail you need to get into, and indeed what you can do with it as a result. But definitely we're beginning to work as far as that's concerned, getting to grips with all what that means. So it's growing in terms of importance. Here is an interesting piece of feedback from e-consultancy, which is probably more of a digital marketeer's e-sign and point of reference. And it's interesting, they make a couple of comments in there from our perspective. One is obviously top-down commitment. That's very important. The conversation about empowered staff, again, empowerment, engagement is very much part of our conversation in the customer services. And at the bottom, it's very pleasing to say that there's a recognition of the importance that efficient customer service plays. Now, we could probably substitute words like customer effort in there as well to indicate how important that is as part of the overall customer experience. So there's evidence sitting there, and going across to Bruce Hempkin, who does a lot of work on customer experience, polling the industry. This is probably a US-based thing. People at the most senior parts of organizations are at least recognizing that customer experience provides them with a way to be different, and that they want to be committed to doing that. Whether or not the percentage of people stating that will end up actually doing it is probably another matter, but it is good at least to see head nodding at that level in terms of its importance.
It seems quite aspirational in terms of those who think that they're better than everybody else in their industry and are the best in their industry. So 60% are either the best or better than everybody else. Already. And that doesn't probably tally with our experience, which should not necessarily as customers. But anyway, that's interesting. So let's have our first piece of, second piece of formal feedback. Jonty, you're going to actually ask us a question on, I've forgotten the question now.
I indeed. The question is, what attributes make for a good personalised customer experience? So the attributes that we have on the screen for you to vote on, you can pick a maximum of 3. Low customer effort, consistent across all channels, able to solve the problem, polite, well-informed staff, and answer calls quickly. So if you'd just like to pick your top 3 on there, so it's going to take a little while that comes through. Tim, any ideas of which ones you think might be more popular than others?
I'm thinking low customer effort, and I'm thinking, well, able to solve the problem is probably a fairly low level of customer expectation, and certainly some of the things that we're going to be talking about are would make customers very happy on this basis.
Well, the results are jumping around a bit there, so if you'd just like to vote on those, we'll just let it settle down a bit. We've got most people have voted now. It's starting to settle down a bit. I'm just going to close the results and share those with on the screen. So,
yes.
What makes for a good customer experience? Number 1, able to solve the problem. So
there you go.
No expectation. It's probably the key one there. polite, well-informed staff.
Yep.
And I certainly think training is one thing that often gets very neglected beyond the
Initial induction.
Great job of induction, but follow-up training. On a recent webinar, we were saying, how do we get training off email and actually into coaching? Low customer effort, and actually, funny enough, answering the calls quickly, which is one of the big stats, the service level stats, seems to be rather almost irrelevant.
Maybe we're reinterpreting that actually in terms of ability to solve and low customer effort. Maybe that's another way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day.
So, I think there's a lot of research that people are prepared to wait if they get the
answer that they're looking for.
The question. So just back to you, Martin.
Thank you very much. Right. Onwards. So again, the bit that I'm going through at the moment is showing how this quest for personalisation is really taking place across all channels. And I'll give you my punchline so that we know where we're going here. It's to say that as consumers, we really are being increasingly conditioned to expect personalisation in one form or the other. We therefore must get up to that standard increasingly within the call centre space. That's really where I'm heading. So again, this is a piece of feedback that shows how much effort is now being put in by marketeers to take the digital online experience into one where there is some component of personalisation. Let me give you examples to make it real for you. If you have some kind of web portal, because you can take big social network examples like Facebook, you can take more traditional ones, but all of us have got some ability to probably customize the screen, change the widgets around to suit us in one form or the other. Again, that's a pretty common one that's been around for a long time now, but again, it's one that we would typically expect. Here's another one that was very well known as well, which is the fact that other people have recommended and people aggregate that information to influence our purchasing decisions. That's again based on something Tim mentioned actually, which is that we tend to trust our friends and family much more than we would trust brand messages. So again, the personalization of our experience from collective recommendations. Another similar version of that is a round of media such as films, music, anything of that nature. Again, you can actually find that people actually coalesce fairly interestingly around common taste, and therefore can you benefit in terms of recommendation from that particular grouping of people's interests. And here's another one which again a lot of us use, which is just alerts in one form or the other, getting the web to do the work for us and feed back something of particular interest, which again gives us the ability to customize our flow. And actually, dead interesting and dead topical is Google just launching Glass. And interesting listening to one of the co-founders, Sergey, talking about that, saying that he finds smartphones a very antisocial form of communication. May well be self-serving point, but he's saying behind that his original vision was actually he didn't expect you ever having to go out and search for stuff. He wanted the web to come back at you in terms of relevant information. And part of the vision of Glass, which is to wear literally things that inform you in real time about information using augmented reality, is that the world of information is relevant and customized in real time to you. Yeah. Now, how much is that sci-fi still, but it's beginning to be introduced into our day-to-day world. Fascinating.
So if smartphones are antisocial, how about this for an example of customization from Tyler? Tyler says, we sell costumes, so our customers generally are attending events that they are excited about. When they mention an event they are planning to attend, our representatives will pass along handwritten cards, wishing them a happy birthday, a good time at the 70s party, and so on, which is then sent along with their package. Beautiful. So I think that's a great example of a sort of low-tech, if you like, form of customization.
Works perfectly, and all the better for being authentic in that way as well. Lovely, great. So let's just nail this key point. The rapid development of personalization in digital channels means customers are being conditioned to expect a common approach across every channel, including call centers. And in fact, we've just interestingly been doing a webinar earlier today talking to online retailers, and the language that they're developing is one of omni-channel retailing. Now, apart from the fact that that's a bit of a hideous word, what they're trying to communicate there is that really multi-channel isn't good enough. There's got to be a much tighter connection going on between all channels. And in that particular space, you know, we've already experienced it. You can buy something online, probably pick it up in store, you know, and that connection that is taking place is just going on throughout the world. And what we need to understand is that one channel affects the expectation of another channel, not just how good are you in voice, therefore how good are you in web chat. We're looking at more general trends like, I get personalization when I go online, why does not that happen to me when I don't have my call center experience? And there's a whole new set of pressures coming in. And in the call center world, we need to increasingly keep our eyes and ears above the parapet, looking out to these broader trends, because increasingly we are part of delivering that overall customer experience. Here's some good examples. Piece of research done quite recently. Interesting brand. I hadn't heard of this before. That's probably my ignorance, but their strapline is personalize anytime, anywhere. Again, an indication of the interest of this topic. And they polled some US retail executives, and it's dead interesting to see the extent already that people have thought about customization strategies across all of these major channels. And interestingly, of course, what it means will vary according to channels. So if I can just zero in on the one on the right on the top there called mobile, because we have things like GPS, for example, and therefore location awareness, an alert in that context could be triggered by virtue of the fact that you're walking down a high street. We already know that. We know that you exist within our CRM system. We're going to message you in real time and say, listen, pop in and there's something here for you, and incentivizing you as far as that's concerned. So an alert in that context, quite different from maybe the way we think about alerts in call centers, which might be, I don't know, we're a travel company, bad weather's on the way, let's alert you to that fact. A different manifestation of that.
Yeah, and Scott's asked a question on this context of the attributes question. What does Martin see as the primary function of the phone channel, given there are multiple channels open to customers?
Great question. I think a piece of work that none of us have done, and I have only just, I keep telling myself I've got to get around to it, is each channel is uniquely strong and weak by virtue of its characteristics.
Yeah.
You know, so voice we all know is expensive. It's real time, it's the most human,
yeah,
and it's the most suitable in many respects for problem solving, particularly when half the skill is understanding the nature of the problem.
Yeah.
You can't use self-service and FAQ for that, for example. It's stupid not using voice, in my view, live people, to solve a complaint, because the emotional undertone of that.
Yeah.
Relationship building, I don't think you sub out to an email. That's rude at a human level. So you can start to identify some unique things. 140 characters in Twitter is rubbish at one level, but brilliant in another aspect. So I think one thing that everyone's got to do is analyze channels and understand what they're good for, map that against the situations you find customers are engaged with you in, and then decide what's appropriate.
Yep, very good.
The other thing that is driving personalization is big data, which is a hugely groovy topic, and just mention big data to your manager and you'll probably get a pay rise these days.
It was mentioned on the radio this morning.
Was it?
Big data, yeah.
I have another friend who works in this space who's been doing analytics for years, and he's stamping the ground saying, we've been doing big data for years in call centers. Think about our volume of information we have, and of course we have. So I think it's an interesting secondary point that we shouldn't be fazed by in our space. We actually have been breathing big data for many, many years. Haven't necessarily used it, but it's been available to us. But nonetheless, certainly as far as the digital, the marketing world, online world is concerned, this ability to now analyze vast amounts of data is extremely significant. And that Google Glass is actually a good example. The amount of data that we're collecting about ourselves is due to jump. At the moment, the amount of data in the world is 9 exabytes. An exabyte, by the way, is 1 billion gigabytes. In 24 months, apparently, we're due to leap from 9 to 90,000. That's just ridiculous, isn't it? And hence, we're moving into an entirely different world of possibility here.
But in terms of predictability, though, so by analysing all that information, we then are able to make predictions about issues that our customers may have. Oh, sorry.
Not at all.
Jumping ahead.
No, you're not at all. That's exactly what we're talking about, which is how do you use that data?
Right.
Now, I bet you that people already in the audience have got some form of system within their customer service infrastructure that is doing precisely this.
Yeah.
which is actually saying, what can we learn in real time? How can we feed that back? And in actually what you're providing also is a series of algorithms, if you think about it, isn't it, on your routing platform?
Yes, so we will talk about some elements of predictability and how you can handle predicted calls. So if there's certain actions in somebody's recent past, they've bought something from you, they may want to know when it's going to be shipped. So we will offer them that as an alternative before maybe putting them through to a live agent.
So I suppose actually we've probably used this technology up to date to achieve our other big goal in life in customer service, which is to reduce cost. This is about probably using the same technology for the customer's benefit, and it manifests as personalisation. So again, here's stuff which again we're probably fairly familiar with, which is if you can understand the behaviour of customers in terms of what they've already bought from you, how they've interacted with you, you can start to personalise the treatment that we give. Now, this particular example is online for chat, but the principles apply for any of those other channels, if you can understand that. One of the last pieces I want to show you here is interesting, again from Bruce Kemkin, who has asked, what are the major trends coming through? And there's two in particular that I think fit our market and are very important. The first idea is anticipatory service. Now, that's an interesting notion because Apple, before it became as great as it has become, obviously spent a lot of time thinking about what was best. And one of the places that they will openly acknowledge that they understood what excellence meant was from the Ritz-Carlton group in America. And if you've never experienced them directly, they are the bee's knees as far as, sort of hotel-based concierge-type service. And one of the key things that they induct people into is the notion of it's bad service to have to wait for the customer to tell you what they need. What we're attempting to do is to get ahead of the game and anticipate that. And actually big data in a more abstract way is about predicting things. At a human level, we're talking about anticipating. And again, we're going to give you some examples in a minute of how you can build that in as a core capability into your everyday experience of being in a call center. That's an exciting idea. And the second idea, which I like on that screen, is loyalty-based focused. So can we be doing things and have that as a major goal in our call center, that as a result of that, people feel stronger? Now, we're doing it in terms of NPS score and everything, but to state that right up front is interesting. And by virtue of the fact that both of those are pretty high up on his list, it implicitly says that what we're doing in call centers has an important impact in the broader world of customer experience. Now, one of the examples I just happened to come up with, which is funny, fortuitously, was this particular online experience. And I just picked out the fact that they were doing not just chat, they were doing video chat, which is still quite exotic, to be honest. And as luck would have it, on the previous webinar we'd just done, Stuart McMillan was actually the person who ran that site, was very vocal, and he shared with us this statistic at the bottom, which is dead interesting, which is that by virtue of the fact that he's using video, he is getting a 4 times conversion rate. He's saving many sales before they disappear, because still the big problem online is actually saving the web cart, and they all people disappear. And he's got a 20% higher basket value.
That's amazing.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And that's probably the first interesting example of video I've seen.
Me too.
On a contact center. We've been talking about it for years. But
And I literally, Jonty, I slung it in because I just thought it was interesting. Is it going to work again? And then the right person to answer that literally was on the previous session. Extraordinary. And there's a picture of them.
And in fact, Leon has made an interesting comment about channels. With everything digital becoming more and more automated, and as a result easier and quicker, customer perception is that voice will be the slowest route to solve the problem.
Yes.
So I know a lot of people do like to start off on web chat or email as a way of, I guess it bypasses the queues and gets the conversation going.
Now, let me give you an example about how that could reverse in the future. Because what we do need to do is to make voice more digital. Now, some of us may have heard of VoIP and stuff like that, but think in terms of Skype as a general example, where you encapsulate live stuff in a different context. The people who are into that are looking at a technology where you'll be able to embed voice into a web browser as easily as anything. In that context, one of those people I was reading was saying this: can you imagine actually being able to chase down somebody in terms of their social network handle, like being on Twitter, being on Facebook, and simply using that address to do a click-to-call. In which case, you reverse the whole thing about the difficulty of getting in contact using voice. Now, that's just beginning, and if you can imagine that capability, I think that criticism will disappear in the future.
Yeah.
At the moment, the way in which we get people connected is very primitive.
Yeah.
But there are other ways in which that can take place soon.
Okay, brilliant.
And to that point, though, sometimes it is the channel of last resort, but it is the only channel that will resolve customer situations in certain circumstances.
And by the way, there are many technologies like queuing technologies which actually get rid of the whole experience. Anyway, thank you for that question, by the way. It's an important one that you do need to sort out.
Okay, well, we're ready for another poll. So I'm just going to launch a poll, which is which barriers, so what barriers do you have to delivering a personalised customer experience? I'd just like to put the results up on the screen there. The answers are lack of awareness.
Sorry, that's whose awareness?
That is lack of awareness within the company.
Okay.
Lack of resources, i.e. we're too busy. Lack of budget. Lack of buy-in from senior management, or conflicting priorities.
As ever.
So those are some answers there. If you want to pick all that apply to you on there, I think it's going to be quite.
Those who are having a bad hair day could pick all of them.
I guess that could be true. Tim, any thoughts? Which one's going to come up high?
I am thinking. Well, conflicting priorities is always going to be an issue, and resourcing is always going to be an issue. And I think not to plug cloud too much, but I think the cloud helps us in some of those areas. Awareness, I would have thought would be relatively low, and budget again. Well, conflicting priorities we're always vying for budget, so that may well be up there.
And Shelter said we're missing one answer, which is software issue. So let's go and share the results.
No software issues in the cloud.
On the screen there, conflicting priorities. Yes,
there we go.
Absolutely right there. 70% conflicting priorities. Next popular is lack of resources. We're too busy. Lack of budget, only 44%. Actually citing budget as
the time to do it, isn't it?
18% lack of buy-in from senior management. That tends to infer that our senior management then are pretty well behind
relatively bought into this,
which is great, and lack of awareness. What I'd like to do now is just drill down on that, and if you type this into the question box or into the web chat, what is the biggest thing that is holding you back from delivering a personalised customer experience within your company? So if you'd just like to type that either into the question box or into the web chat, a reminder, the address for web chat, callcenterhelper.com/chat. Just like to type those in. While that's going through, there's a comment from Scott earlier that big data brings new challenges, including identifying the subset of data that needs to be acted on. Without efficient tools to do this, is it just another buzzword? So I think there's an element of a buzzword there.
Yes, that's true. Absolutely.
So,
sorry, just going back to a point that people were making here about voice might well seem to be a slower channel. I mean, I would say one thing. If you don't have the means to solve the problem, either in terms of the knowledge or the processes supporting, it doesn't matter if you go through a digital channel, a mobile channel, or even an old-fashioned channel. You're still going to slow down once you've communicated the point. And it's more important to think about it holistically of problem-solving rate than necessarily which channel appears to be faster. And that notion needs to be pushed back out to customers too.
Okay, so here's some of the things that are holding people back. Nimash has said it's systems capabilities.
Yep.
Alexander, the amount of people required to sign off, the many changes we'd like to make, and the resources of buy-in.
Yeah.
Sandra said technology and the lack of CRM.
Yeah.
Lisa said changing the advisor's way of working. Gonzalez said up-to-date, accurate database information. Sarah said keeping up to speed and the change of technology. Paul Milner, Paul has said silos of call center operations, multiple IVR platforms.
Yes.
Dave also says that companies are still too siloed, sales, service, marketing, product development, so on.
Agreed.
Liz has said systems limitations using third parties.
Yes.
Paul, CSR agent skills. Nigel has said systems and training. There's a lot of system stuff.
There is a lot of
technology
system stuff in there,
that's coming here. Dana said time and resources. We have just enough people to keep. Sorry, where's that one gone? We're just enough people to keep ourselves above water.
Yeah.
Making it personalised is very tough in that.
Yeah.
And Suzette has said a combination of budget and resources. Not convinced we're able to successfully link our existing CRM, legacy back office systems and customer portal. It looks good when the sales team are there, but integration falls apart when implemented.
Well, I'll tell you, I haven't mentioned it here, but one of the slides that we looked at in the other session this morning is to say, if we're trying to join everything up, you need to set some criteria, and that is that actually each of the Lego blocks has to be simple, scalable, reusable, and accessible. And one of the key things I know from call center technology is the fact that for a lot of us, it's very expensive, hard to move on, difficult to get sign-off and all the rest of it. And we're probably looking at a generational break here in terms of need to change gear and think about it, because marketeers and salespeople have all got to find a way of actually getting on much quicker than we're doing. Anyway, that's that piece there. Tim, you're going to take us through very quickly some examples, and it's predicated around two very simple ideas. Number one, we should be designing our routing on the basis not of skill, which is an internal matter, but upon actually what matters to the customer, which is their situation. That's the first principle. And the second one is let them know that you know, so that there's a wow experience in the middle of all of that there. So take those two things. There's a wow experience, and the fact is, can we anticipate the situation that matters to customers? And you're going to take us, oh, actually, we've got a few quick things here. We'll whiz through those. It doesn't matter. We haven't really got time. Suffice to say that mostly we're not very good at routing in terms of call center stuff.
And there will be a copy of the slides on the site.
There will be. So here we go. Routing plus customer data equals personalization is the core idea. And here we go. We're lined up. Tim,
lovely. Thank you very much. So I'm going to just take you through 6 or 7 examples of how our customers do this. So these are real examples. They are being used today. They're not things that we have made up. As I mentioned earlier on, in terms of resourcing and IT and those sorts of things, our service is a service. It's a cloud-based environment. So from our customer's point of view, there's very little to manage, and a lot of that is done by NewVoiceMedia. So the first one, a customer situation, a highly valued customer, a high-value customer makes contact during peak busy periods. So you don't necessarily want this customer queuing because you know that they're high value. You can identify them through their calling line ID, the line they're calling in through, whether that's mobile, because a lot of calls are now mobile, and therefore you can link that through to a customer identification within your CRM, and we can route that customer through either through segmentation around are they a great customer, in other words, do they buy regularly, do they buy a lot, and we want to improve their customer experience, or are they at an interesting point in their buying cycle. So we want an automated message that says, whilst they're on hold, we recognise that you're a valued customer, i.e. we know who you are, and we're prioritising your call for immediate attention, and then place the call through to the appropriate agent. And that may be, and we have one customer who does this, who does that to a personal shopper. So it's a very high-level environment, and where customers are spending fairly significant sums per year, and they would be routed through to somebody who they know, and who knows their buying history, obviously. Another environment, customer has made repeated contact in a short space of time. Now that could indicate that they have a problem. So I've called the call center or the help desk multiple times in the last 24 hours. They've had a problem. It has not been resolved. And depending on the situation, we can then manage that call appropriately. So we noticed you've been in contact with us a lot recently about a particular issue. Would you like me to find one of our special customer services? I.e., we recognise that you're having a problem. We want to route and manage that call differently. And we have a customer who does that as well. Third, again, we know that online shopping, and the shoe example is a fantastic example because it puts some numbers around this. But we know that online retailers have an issue about abandonment. and that people and customers leave those shopping carts. So we can tell that from web analytics. If they're coming to the website having abandoned, we can say that. Now there is an issue around privacy and personalisation, and there is a balance to be gained there. So we don't want to indicate to customers that we're prying into their private lives and what they're doing, or that we're going to use that information, obviously outside of it, the customer environment. But we can recognize. If someone's already
half filled in a form and put their phone number in, and then they phone you up, I think it would be fair to say.
It's fair to say that we recognise that has happened, and obviously there are a number of environments where this can happen. It's not just in an online shopping environment. We ourselves look at how our customers, or potential customers, are looking at our website, how they're engaging with us over time, and we then route their call appropriately when they finally end up calling us. So it gives us some insights into what customers may be wanting, and that again leads to a prioritization or a different level of customer service. An incomplete situation in which the customer has invested time with a particular person. So we've all been in this situation. We all know what it's like to be on a train, to have explained your problem and then get cut off, or we've explained the problem and then been asked, can you give me your XYZ identification number or the transaction number or whatever it might be, and if you don't have that, then you have to call back. So that can be very frustrating. Wouldn't it be great if when you call back and you were routed through to the same person that you were talking to, you could say, oh, hello Mr. Pickard, thank you for calling back, would you like to carry on where we left off? Absolutely. That would be great. Or alternatively, if somebody is cut off in a mobile environment, we ring them back and say, we seem to have got cut off, shall we continue with the inquiry that you had? So those are environments, again, that are available to us today. Mixing our channels a little bit, we know that some of our customers have very high profiles in social media. We know that they are very loyal to us, and we want to make sure that they are continuing to be advocates of us. So as they contact us, we recognise those two facts being the case, and we try and manage that call appropriately. So the person you normally talk to will be free in the next few minutes. However, if you'd like to be put through to the next available agent, we will do that. So you know, it's recognising that customer and trying to tailor their experience.
And what's
in that
surprising
way.
on this is some technology is not new to do it, but I'm not aware of very many places that do this.
It doesn't happen that much, and a lot of because it is complex to do in a traditional on-premise environment.
That's because the routing. I mean, CTI. How long have we been talking about this for? Yonks.
Well, 91, I think, was when I first.
And it's part of a bigger discussion, but my particular view of having again played on that side of the fence is a lot of it was stitched in initially when it was plumbed in, never ever changed. And I must say this whole webinar actually came out of the fact that I was doing some work with NewVoiceMedia a while back and just noticing how easily they were playing around with the Salesforce screen, mucking around with rules and going, that used to be a business and a systems integration job costing lots. Now you can do it on the fly, and suddenly we thought, gosh, you can actually scale personalisation in a way that wasn't possible before.
We have a very recent customer win example. We are about to announce it in the next couple of weeks. A very interesting company. They have transitioned a traditional call centre on-premise, 400 odd agents, to our cloud service. When they saw a demo from us, and we talked about changing IVR prompts and doing some of the things that we're talking to you now, they literally said, it takes us 6 weeks to change that now. 6 weeks. And it can be done in 10-15 minutes on a modern cloud-based environment. So very, 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 very different in terms of customer expectations and what customers can do with the technology. So I'll give one more, and then I think we need to move on. Am I right?
That's fine. Yeah, we can.
So this is an interesting one because the customer is in a critical decision-making period, i.e., They may be renewing their insurance quote, for example, so we know that the customer is within the 3 months up coming up for renewal. Or if it's a service and their use of a service has dropped off, we think, well, here is a customer who may be about to churn. So again, we can recognise that. We can ask that question: are you in this situation, and how can we help you to manage that? There's one more that I wanted to talk about. This is an interesting one in terms of post-call surveys. So if you fill in a post-call survey with a bad or slightly negative outcome, then you can address that the next time the person calls in, and you can manage their call differently. Recognise that you had a bad experience. We want to make sure that experience is improved.
Or indeed, I guess if it's a post-call IVR survey, you could actually phone the unhappy, if it's a bad experience, you could phone them back.
You could phone them back straight away. Yeah, absolutely.
Try and resolve it then.
Absolutely.
Before, perhaps before it gets out on Twitter.
Well, that would be ideally. A customer has bought something recently, online, retail, or in the call centre, and has called in. Now, this is the predictive side of what we were talking about earlier on. We've noticed you recently purchased from our online catalogue. Press 1 if you want to check on delivery status, or 2 if you want to change the order. Those are the 2 most likely things that the customer would want to do, having placed an order. This is diverting the call away from speaking to somebody based on the situation they're most likely to be in. And that really frees up resources, but also answers the customer's questions as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah, and certainly a number of IVRs I go through where it's like, for goodness sake, can't you recognise me? That's like, well, I phone it in every time and I get the same IVR menu. I think personalising the IVR menu to you.
Well, exactly, and that's an example of a personalised IVR menu.
I've just been tapping away with the people who are on the chat thing, and so there's some interesting themes coming through on that side, which are absolutely worthy. Number one, there is a lot that can be done in terms of human skill to personalise things through politeness, recognition, saying thank you, calling back, those kinds of things. That absolutely needs to be put into the mix. Sure. The bit that we're putting out here today is really to say this: there's a lot of data we already have about customers. How much do customers really benefit as a result of giving us that data, either consciously through post-call survey or indirectly because they just collect it from us? And the whole argument here is to say, as we are beginning to do in digital context, we should be not hoarding that data but using it to the customer's benefit. And the reality is this: 40% of us at the top of this presentation said we're not getting any better as far as this is concerned. If you took the subsection of call centres, we're still not on the right side of delighting folk, or whatever your language is for that. A lot of it is to do with the fact that we don't feel very recognised, and it's hard work doing business with call centres. A lot of the examples we've given today is to get rid of the standard I'm sitting at the back of the queue experience to being prioritised as a result of that circumstance. And therefore it's using data intelligently to make the customer feel that they're getting the right level of the service, and then possibly, in experience terms, giving them something to remember and going, wow, guess what happened to me today? And all the examples Tim went through, just imagine this. Have you got anywhere close to having that experience yet in a call centre? If you had, I bet you'd be telling somebody else about that, because it'd be such a wow experience. And because it's not common, and I don't think anybody is saying it is, it remains an opportunity to be different and therefore better. And call centres can suddenly wave a flag saying, hey, we're playing part of the organisational thing about being better and different. And that's why I think we need to get excited and interested in this.
Fabulous. Well, while everyone's excited, it's your chance in the audience now to win a bottle of champagne. Lots of people have been chatting away on web chats. We've got lots of interaction. We haven't got that many tips compared to normal. So I think
too busy with chat.
The chance of winning a bottle of champagne is much better than normal. So please type those into the question box. We'll try and pick them off the web chat if we can. The first tip sent in by Malu is ask your team to remember their own best experiences as customers. When I was wowed or decided to come back as a customer due to excellent or customer service and experience, your customers are likely to be just as yourself. So treat them as you want to be treated, though as personal, engaged service.
Yeah.
So asking your agents to recount their best customer experiences, that's quite a nice one, Martin.
I think that's a great idea. And again, one of the interesting things about volume service is to make everyone as fresh as the previous one, in spite of the fact that you've done 100 already in the hour. That's the great trick of it.
Dave was jokingly, I think, said my nationwide ATM recently asked me if I wanted my usual 50 or 100 pounds. There was no other choice. I thought that was great.
Love it.
Dave, you must be a wealthy man. Miranda, personalising can be created by referring to an earlier contact from the customer.
Yeah.
For example, you called last week about not having internet. Is that problem solved?
That's exactly what we're leveraging as a capability. You're dead right, Miranda. And the fact that we collect this information in the CRM, it's not being actively used. Brilliant, brilliant.
Okay. Richard said investment in staff. The staff have to believe in the product brand and care for the customer to be at top level.
Yeah.
Certainly investing, we talked earlier about training is certainly a key part, but also, management walking the talk and having the
skills, investing in skills.
belief in it. Kim says we regularly do mystery shops within our contact centre to ensure that we experience the customer.
Absolutely. That's a great way of understanding how the customer will feel and how the customer has to navigate your services.
I love listening to customers in the IVR.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. I went to a case study recently of a well-known brand who didn't measure abandons in their IVR and found they had an 18% abandon rate before they hit the call centre. Most call centres don't measure abandon until 5 seconds after you've actually reached an agent.
In fact, one of the best ways to kill volume is to do bad IVR but not know about it.
That's not what we're trying to promote here, though, is it?
Not at all.
Dave says, funny how most companies only offer the good deals to new customers.
Yeah, nonsense.
I've seen that a number of times.
Mobile phone technology is one of the worst for that, aren't they?
Well, raises a bigger point there. We've got to get joined up with our marketing and sales colleagues here because we're dealing with one aspect here, but you can't win if you've got things like that happening.
Yeah, so Sarah says, really engage the frontline teams to share their ideas.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are taking the calls.
Agreed.
And talking to our customers and have an idea of how to engage the customer with a personalised experience.
Brilliant.
I think that's certainly
brilliant.
Certainly a great one. I'm going to jump down now to some of the questions that we've been sent in, so we get a good chance to do those. And any questions we can't answer, we can go on to web chat. That is callcenterhelper.com/webchat. If you're not on there already, there's certainly lots of people chatting away. Richard said, what about the philosophy that all customers are valued customers?
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I think that is absolutely true. But having said that, recognizing, segmenting your customers and understanding your customer base, there's nothing wrong in that. You clearly have to give a good level of service, but if somebody's spending 5, 10, 20 times as much as another customer, or if they're in a situation where they're about to renew their insurance quote, as opposed to people who are queuing for to just research those services, then you may take the decision that you want to prioritise those calls. It's not that you want to deprioritise the others necessarily.
You see, the word value is
Orwell, I guess.
We're all created equal.
All customers are equal, but some customers are more equal than others.
Well, that's also true. But the other thing is we use the word differently. Value in the sense of, are we going to be rude to people? It's common to everybody. Everybody should be equally valued. There's another way of saying financially valued, and clearly they're different. And if you mash those two things together, you get that kind of philosophy coming through, saying we don't like, we're not valuing people.
Yeah. I've heard a question, which I guess is the real nub of it. How do you make customers feel they are unique?
By recognizing their situation.
Yeah.
And managing appropriately.
Yeah. So if anyone's got any other ideas, put them into the chat box. Adadeo has said, what is the acceptable best standard or practice for organisations as regards customer experience?
Wow.
Is there a measurement? Is this a net promoter? Does that?
Well, I think net promoter is probably a good starting point around that. Yeah. So would you actively recommend this company to a friend or colleague? is a pretty good way of doing it. You know, the ultimate question thing.
There are a few bodies. Right First Time is one that springs to mind that look at first call resolution. But
well, part of the answer to that, by the way, is it depends what situation you're in. Again, situation can be an industry. If you're going to buy something for £5 or buy something for £5,000, it probably has a different associated experience. If something is life-threatening because it's a health situation, as opposed to simply an inconvenience, I never got my thing from Amazon,
yeah.
Again, it's got a different order of magnitude to it and therefore a different associated experience.
Yeah. So just take one more question, then we'll go and do a few more tips. We've picked that one up. Some customers value speed rather than service.
Yeah.
What's your view on this?
Customer experience is all about understanding what matters to customer.
Yeah.
Right? So if it matters to that group or that individual, you should ideally be capable of responding to it.
Yes. And it's quite interesting. We did an article, I think 3 weeks ago, on personality types based on some of the work that Powertrain had done with British Gas.
Yep.
And they certainly found that some people get on with it, get it moved, get it through. Other people would love to have a chat while they're doing it and have a bit of a joke and get things sorted. So it's not, and that's to some extent personalisation, recognising the attribute of the
caller. And that's a skill. That's part of that whole skills-based training.
Listening capability.
Being able to understand the different types of personalities and respond appropriately.
And by the way, if you pick up the white paper afterwards and have a careful look at the suggested prompts we gave, all of them gave the customer the option of taking that up, but didn't force them, recognising the question that was just asked there. And that's terribly important. You should not presume to know that experience. No. Simply facilitate it. Yeah.
Okay. Here's some great ones here. Sandra says, empowering staff by using random acts of kindness.
Love it.
Which is great. For example, resolving an inquiry using information gathered to find an incentive personal to that customer. E.g., a storybook was sent to a family for customers whose present was delivered late. Just giving contributions made in place of a regular gift voucher as an apology.
And Sandra is living proof of the fact that those stories get retold.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Storytelling, very important. Important thing. Personalisation shouldn't just be based on current, but also take potential.
Total tick in the box.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely there. Hannah Meek has said you need to make sure that the customers feel they are unique by listening and recognising what they want. I think that's absolutely absolutely.
By the way, I would also say if we get increasingly digital and automated, that's never a substitute for the intelligence a human being puts into the situation as well.
No, I think it's a question of putting them together. And Richard has said unique, using dynamic routing. Yep. We're able to answer the call by saying, good morning, name, how can I help you? Yep. If our data is up to speed, it can be incredibly...
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly the type of thing that I've been talking about on this webinar, is using that information in your CRM, and maybe going one step further and doing routing based on situation as well.
Yeah. So there's lots of discussions going on there in the chat room. So